So I'm going to make pat sucre, which is a sweet short crust pastry in a Magimix. It is important that you understand the process of making pastry by hand before you make it in a machine, because it just helps you understand why you're doing things in certain orders. I will get a video up at some point of making pat sucre by hand. So to start with, using the Magimix method, I'm going to put 4 ounces, 100 grams of unsalted butter into my Magimix, and 4 ounces, 100 grams of icing sugar in there. And I'm going to give this a whiz in the Magimix to make it light and fluffy. So it's now light and fluffy and soft, ready to add the eggs. To show in. Okay, I'm going to add 2 whole eggs. I'm going to do a half and half wholemeal and plain flour pat sucre. So I have chosen 2 large eggs because wholemeal flour absorbs a little bit more water than ordinary white flour. So lid back on, whilst it's running, add my eggs. That just needs, don't show inside the pattern, but it just needs skipping around the edges, and then we'll give that another whiz before it's ready to have the flour added. So this is now ready to have the flour added. If you find that the egg slightly curdles, you can add a tablespoon of your flour. So here I have 9 ounces, 250 grams of flour. I have 5 ounces of wholemeal flour and 4 ounces of plain flour. You can do this completely with plain flour or completely with wholemeal flour. Now I'm using this finely ground 100% wholemeal pastry flour that I order in mail order from Shipton Mill, and I find this to be excellent for pastry and baking because it's so finely ground. So I'm now going to put all the flour into my Magimix. Don't want to waste any, and I'm going to give it a quick whiz. You don't want to overwork your pastry, so you need just to keep it going until it just starts to form a ball. Another quick whiz. So I'm going to take this out of the machine and place it onto a lightly floured surface. I can see that it's actually quite wet. I maybe chose slightly too big eggs today. So I'm going to take that out. So you want to be careful not to handle this too much. And then I'm going to roll this out and line my tin and then leave it to rest and chill in the fridge. So if you've got pastry that's a little bit fragile and wet, a cheating tip is to roll it between two pieces of cling film. So I've shaped my pastry into a sort of ball shape. We're aiming to roll a circle, so it's a good idea to have it in something that resembles a circle to start with. So you put two pieces of cling film, one on the bottom and one on top. Push it down lightly with your hands. There's no need to flour your rolling pin because you've got your cling film helping you. So to roll a circle, you want to keep on turning your pastry, a quarter of a turn each time. Rolling it evenly. Just get my tin and I just need to roll that a little bit more. So actually it's easier to move yourself round when you're rolling with cling film than move the cling film because it slightly sticks to the surface. So now that's about the right size. So I'm going to get my rolling pin, roll it over the top, and I'm going to remove the bottom layer of cling film as I go. And then put that over my tin. Ease it in the tin. So the cling film is helping to support the pastry. So I can actually handle that reasonably nicely and moving the cling film slightly forward under there. Then I have a nicely lined tin. So I'm going to just... So this method of making pastry in a Magimix is actually really useful if you have hot hands, because it obviously eliminates the amount that your hands are in contact with the pastry. So I'm just going to roll the top off, and I can use the bit of cling film there. Let's remove that. You can use the remains of the pastry for some little jam tarts or some mince pies or something like that. This pastry is actually very good if you do get a crack in it to patch up with. So it's worth keeping this until you've baked your pastry case blind in case you need to do any patching. So I'm going to put this in the fridge to chill for a minimum of 20 minutes and you can leave it in the fridge for anything up to a couple of hours. So we're going to line the pastry case so that we can bake it, what is known, bake it blind, which means we are going to fill the case with baking beans, which will help to keep the pastry up the sides of the tin whilst it bakes. So I'm going to fold my piece of greaseproof paper in half and half again, and keep on doing this until it makes, it's a bit like making a paper aeroplane. And then I'm going to unfold it and then screw it up. And this just softens the greaseproof paper so it just fits into the pastry case a little bit better when you put the baking beans in. I'm just going to remove my pastry from the fridge, which has had time to chill and is no longer soft, it's fairly firm to the touch. Place my greaseproof paper inside pastry case. Now the edges of the top of the pastry case tends to cook quicker than the bottom, so actually folding the greaseproof paper up the top, over the top, just helps to protect that from burning. So these are ceramic baking beans, also known as pie weights as well. So I'm going to fill my pastry case, going right to the sides, because this is the important bit, is the sides, because it'll stop the sides from falling down when the heat starts to penetrate the pastry, and the bottom of the pastry case from bubbling and rising up. So I'm going to place this in a hot oven at 200 degrees for 20 minutes. After 15 minutes, we'll have another look at it and see if it's ready to have the baking beans removed for the final 5 minutes of crisping the pastry. So the pastry's been in the oven for 15 minutes, so it should be ready to remove the baking beans. So I'm just peeling it off here, and you can see that it looks cooked. So we're just going to then put it back in the oven for another 5 minutes, just to make sure that it is nice and firm, because nobody likes a soggy bottom to a tart. But this way the pastry will remain up the sides of your tin. So the pastry case has now had its 5 further minutes in the oven, and you can see it is all cooked round the edge. It is this point round the edge that quite often is still uncooked when you have the baking beans in. So that's cooked through. The bottom is brown, and you can see that it started to just shrink slightly away from your tin, which will make it easier to remove out of the tin later when we're ready to do so. So I'm just lifting that off my baking tin and just going to put it on a cooling rack to cool whilst we make the filling. So to make the filling, I need to bring the cream to the boil. This is half a pint, 10 fluid ounces of double cream. I'm using Elm Lee double, which is a UHT cream, because at the moment we're in the middle of lockdown too, and I don't have fresh cream available, but I do have some of this in my fridge. It has a good use by date on it, so it's quite handy in situations like this to have in your kitchen cupboard. When you're heating any milk product, you need to be careful that you don't scorch it on the bottom of the pan. So you want to actually bring it up to boiling point relatively slowly to avoid this. So whilst that's just slowly coming up to the boil, we can get on and have a look at some of the other ingredients. So I have 9 ounces, 250 grams of raspberries. These are frozen raspberries that I picked in the summer from our garden, and I open froze them, and now we can use them during the winter. So I'm going to put these in the bottom of my pastry case, and because they're still quite bulky, I'm just going to squidge them a little bit with a potato masher so that they fit in the bottom of the pastry tin a little bit better. So I will just put those aside for a few minutes whilst the pastry case is still cooling, and now that the cream has come up to the boil, we can look at the ganache. My cream has just come up to the boil, so I'm going to add my chocolate. This is cooking chocolate, so there is 7 ounces, 200 grams. So that's going to go in, and I'm going to beat that in. Beating that in, and that's the chocolate is melting in the nice hot cream. You can see it going a nice deep chocolatey colour. That's virtually all melted. Then I'm going to add my glucose syrup. There's a tablespoon of glucose syrup here. Not always easily available in your supermarket, but I got mine off the internet. So good old internet finds all sorts of difficult to come by ingredients. So I'm whisking that in, and it's initially stuck to my whisk, but now with the heat come away. So that's now a lovely creamy chocolatey colour, and I'm then going to whisk in my butter, but it is important that the butter is hard and cold and comes from the fridge. This is going to add a lovely gloss to the chocolate, and I'm going to add this a little bit at a time. So there's 50 grams, 2 ounces of unsalted butter, and I'm going to just whisk that in a small knob at a time. And you'll see over time that that's going to make a lovely sheen to our chocolate ganache. If you add it too quickly and don't whisk it, you'll end up with just a buttery, fatty slick on the top of your chocolate, which isn't very nice. That's all the butter gone in now. Just whisk it until it's all incorporated in the ganache. It's now all melted and absorbed, and we've got nice shiny chocolate and cream mixture. So I'm just going to leave that for a few moments to cool slightly, and then I'm going to fill my tart with the raspberries on the bottom. Spread those out all the way, going right to the edge. It's important to fill this still in your flan ring or tin, so you've got the added support of the tin whilst you fill, and you don't break your pastry case. And I've actually reserved a few spoonfuls of the raspberries and put them in a glass, and then we'll fill that up as well. And if you have any leftovers, you can then serve them in glasses, or in fact, if you didn't want to go to the performance of making the pastry, but like the idea of a raspberry chocolatey creamy dessert, you can quite easily layer it up in a wine glass. So that's all smoothed out to the edge. I'm going to pour my chocolate and cream ganache mixture over the top. I can see that I've just missed a little bit of butter that I didn't manage to incorporate in, so I shall just fish that out. Oh, I got a raspberry as well. So we can put a little bit more chocolate in there. Fill it right to the top, as full as we can. Don't think we're going to get any more chocolate in there, so I'm just going to leave that to cool a little bit before I put it in the fridge to set. So that'll take 3 or 4 hours to set in the fridge. So a little bit of chocolate mixture we've got left, put on top of the raspberries, fill my wine glass up. A bit round the edge, so with a nice clean piece of kitchen towel. Oh no, I did it on the outside of the glass. Just clean that away so that can go in the fridge to set. So the tart is now set, so I'm going to take it out of its tin. So I've got a small ramekin that I'm going to place my loose bottom tin on, and then it just slips away because we've cooked the pastry well, so it's slightly shrunk away from the metal tin, which has allowed it to be released easily. We've still got the bottom of the tin to remove. It isn't correct to leave the metal bottom on, but if you're not feeling brave enough, you can leave it on. So I'm just going to slightly bend it and slot my underneath, and then place it on my plate. You can see that the tart is nicely browned on the outside. So we're going to decorate this and make it look pretty. I've got a few fresh raspberries that I purchased, and I'm going to dust them with a little bit of icing sugar. Now this pudding serves 8 people, so I'm going to put my raspberries around the outside. So I'm going to put one at 12 o'clock, one at 6 o'clock, and then one at 3 and 9, and then fill in the gaps in between. That. And I've got a couple of chocolate twirls, so I'll put a few more raspberries in the middle to give me some nice centre height. Then break those up. That one, like that, and then that's ready to slice up later. So we have the one that we did without the pastry in the glass. So I'm going to put some raspberries in the top there. 3 in, and then break the bottom off here and stick a twirl, and then that's ready to serve. So who's for some dessert? Oi! You can see the nice layers of raspberry and chocolate. The raspberry on there.